All right, now before we get started with our interview with Terry Fator, we want to give you some more updates on what some of our past guests have been up to.
Yeah, so last episode we had Pam Arciero on, who talked all about her work on Sesame Street and as a director. She is going to be directing a new show at Sesame Place this summer, and you could be a part of it. Check the show notes for the application link to be a puppeteer at Sesame Place, and you'll work with Pam as well as Martin Robinson and Matt Vogel, who are going to be there doing some puppetry coaching as well.
And speaking of Marty Robinson, he's just launched a new website for his All Hallows Eve show. Be sure to check the description for a link to that new website as well.
Yeah, the show's coming to New York City this fall, so make sure you're looking at that website regularly to get info on the show. Puppeteers is available wherever you get your podcast, and we'd really appreciate it if you liked, subscribed, and reviewed to the show. It really helps us get boosts on people seeing the podcast and enjoying all these interviews that we put up.
And be sure to share this with your friends as well if you enjoy it, and make sure you also leave comments and make suggestions for other puppeteers that you want us to talk to, and it helps if you tag them in the posts as well so that they know that we're around.
Yeah, Adam and I check all of our social media, so if you ever reach out to us, we're going to be there to respond, and we're really interested in making sure that we make the best show for you guys.
And speaking of making the best show for you, we want to be able to do some more stuff as well. We want to start traveling and to do some more behind the scenes things for some workshop tours, and as well as going to some conventions.
Yeah, we're really interested in doing a live show. For as much as we enjoy our setup here, doing video interviews with people all across the country and all across the world, there's nothing like sitting down with real puppeteers in front of an audience, and we're hoping to be able to do more of that either this year or in the coming years.
So that's kind of a long way of saying that we're going to be starting a Patreon page.
Woo, it's right here. Go to Patreon or go to the show notes and click on that. No part of the puppeteers that you have been enjoying for the last year is going behind a paywall. This is simply to help us. If you enjoy the show, if you like the guests we have on, if you want to see us do more, that little bit will help us to be able to buy plane tickets or pump gas in our cars.
Yeah, to travel to do more on-site shows.
Yeah, and we'd really appreciate anything that you guys could do to help make Puppeteers the best show it could possibly be, so that you guys could keep enjoying it and we could keep doing it for a really long time, because we're having a blast.
With that being said, we really appreciate your guys' support, and I think we should start our interview with Terry Fator. What do you say, Cam?
I say it's time for our show, so thank you so much, and
enjoy the show.
Whether you're a regular puppeteer like you guys are, or whether you're a ventriloquist, you have to believe that these puppets are really having conversations with one another, or if you're a ventriloquist, that you have a relationship with that puppet. And I don't believe that my puppets are real, but when I'm on stage, I certainly make it look like I believe they're real. And if I can't convince the audience that I believe they're real, the audience will never buy into that illusion either.
Welcome back to Puppeteers. We're your hosts, Adam Krutinger
and Cameron Garrity.
And today is a very special episode. We have the famous Terry Fator here. Welcome to the show, Terry.
It's wonderful to be on the show.
Thanks so much. So for anyone who doesn't know, Terry was the champion of America's Got Talent, the second season, back in 2007. He is an incredible puppeteer. He is a ventriloquist. He's an impressionist, a singer, a comedian, really a jack of all puppet trades. He is celebrating 10 years at the Mirage Theater in Las Vegas, and to sold out shows, and he tours all over the place. And we're also going to talk to him about his foundation, the Terry Fator Foundation, which is focused on military-based charities, the American Cancer Society, and the Nevada Blind Children's Foundation. So, Terry, welcome to Puppeteers.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, what are you working on now? You're in between shows. You got a show in like an hour right now, right?
Yeah, I've got my 10th anniversary at the Mirage. I cannot believe it's been 10 years that I've been the headliner at the Mirage since 2009, and March 14th was my official opening night in 2009, and we're having my 10-year anniversary on Friday, March 15th. And it's going to be something. I'm telling you, man. I'm doing a rewrite of the show and a rebranding, and everything is different. I mean, I'm really overhauling every part of the show to be a totally new experience. And so I'm here early working on that. We're here rehearsing and shooting some video that's going to be shot the night of the anniversary show. And let me say, if there's anybody out there that wants to see it, there are a few tickets left. So it's not too late, but they're going to be sold out within the next week or two. So if you are planning or want to come and see the 10th anniversary, get out here and get your tickets quickly.
Very good.
Sure, yeah.
Now, for people who maybe haven't seen you since they first met you on America's Got Talent, how has the show changed? What's an hour-long Terry Fator show look like?
Well, it's an hour and a half, actually.
Oh, hour and a half. Pardon me.
It's really evolved in an amazing way. I've created a new puppet every single year that I've been here. Because I made that a commitment. I don't know if that's going to continue because I'm literally overflowing with puppets now, and they're telling me we have no more room for puppets. But I'm going to continue to create characters and to create new routines and everything. And this year I did something really different that I've never done. What I've been doing as I would create puppets, I would rotate puppets in and out of the show, and I would take them and I would give them a year hiatus or a 2-year hiatus. This year I decided I was going to try something different. I took every single puppet that has been in my show over the last 10 years and over 24, I believe, and 24 or 25, and they're all in 1 hour and a half show. It's nuts, but it moves very, very quickly. But yet everything feels solid. It doesn't feel like I'm rushing. It doesn't, but boy, you're going to want to see this show 2 or 3 times in order to just see everything. And It's like one of those action-packed things. So I'm very excited about this.
That's awesome.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So in this show, do you also have, I know in the past, sometimes you would just sing as yourself as well and probably do a little bit of comedy as yourself. Is that still an element of the show?
I do a little bit of that, but instead of making it just me singing by myself, I do duets with the puppets where I will sing part of it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But I do actually sing, and I love to sing, and people always ask me, they say, so, you're a singer and you do really well singing by yourself. Why do you have puppets and why do you have puppet sing? And I'm like, because I can. I mean, not a lot of people can do that kind of thing. So it really sets me apart and makes it different. But I love to do that. And so, like, for example, after my show March 14th, I can't on March 15th because we have some anniversary stuff going on after the show. But March 14th, I'm going to take my audience, however many can fit into it, and go into a lounge and with a piano player and a guitar player, and we're just going to sing for an hour and a half. And I just sing then. I don't bring puppets or anything. And that's where I kind of get that out.
Yeah, that's
great.
awesome. Wow.
Now, so you're obviously known for all the impressions you're able to do. Are there certain character voices that you could only access when you're in ventriloquist mode? How do the sort of mechanics of that work? Because I know we are both Muppet style monitor type puppeteers, so we have a great admiration, but understand very little about the sort of technical know-how of that. So how does that work?
As far as ventriloquially, you mean?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's weird because it's different. When I do an impression of a singer a long time, and I do it without moving my lips, and I'll have it in the show for years and years and years, I got to tell you, it gets to a point where it's way easier to sing with my lips moving. I mean, it's way harder to do it. Why or how I can do it, I have no idea. My voice doctor, and this is true, my voice doctor has gone on record. In fact, he did an interview with Rolling Stone magazine because he's the voice doctor to the stars. His name is Wayne Kirkham, and he does Mick Jagger, and he does, Axl Rose. He does a lot of the big singers. And he told them in an interview that what I do is physically impossible, and he can't figure out how I do it. I don't know how I do it either, but it's way easier to sing. But I do notice that if I have an impression in my show that I do without moving my lips for year after year after year, I'll try to do it without moving my lips, and it's difficult to get it because I've trained myself. So I guess it's like anything. When you train yourself to do something, it's very difficult to do it a different way.
Yeah,
right.
I understand. Yeah, with ventriloquism, well, like sometimes you have to substitute different sounds to make the other sounds that you need to make. And I imagine when you're doing different impressions, sometimes you have to do different substitutions to hit different tones and stuff. While we were talking earlier, that I imagine a lot of it's almost like learning a different language. In that, like in Mandarin and other languages, they literally make different noises with their mouth and throat that we don't have to for English. So
I've never heard anybody put it that way, but that's absolutely true. It's like learning another language. It explains to me the way you put it that way. It explains to me why it's so difficult for other people. It comes very naturally to me, although it didn't come naturally when I was 10 when I first started. 43 years later, I could do it in my sleep. Right. And you're right. but I'm a perfectionist when it comes to things like that. So when I was a kid, the books will tell you substitute. You have to substitute. So, it would say, learn how to say either with a K or a G, or for G for B or D for B. So it'd be like Godelagear. In fact, that's a big ventriloquism joke, is Godelagear.
Yeah.
And I would listen to myself. I would tape myself saying teeter titer tick tick tickle titters, and I would think, that's you won't be able to recognize that. That doesn't sound like Peter Piper. So I would just experiment with my tongue in different places of my mouth, trying to figure out where the tongue should go, and learning. This is thousands and thousands of hours of rehearsing and practicing and learning and going over and saying Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers thousands of times to myself. And I was actually able to learn how to say Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. And it's not perfect, but it sounds really close. Piper, right?
We didn't edit that, just so people know. Yeah, we did not edit that in the post. But no, that's awesome. One more thing I was just thinking about, like movies like the Goosebumps and stuff that come out. Has that ever been a problem, getting the stigma of the figures, the puppetry figures that you use being creepy and stuff? I know I feel like it's almost a shtick that people just like to say that, like having a fear of clowns or something. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it can be a problem, and it is a problem. Occasionally, very, very rarely, and I think I understand. I've actually had people come to my show that will tell me that before my show they were petrified and they had a true fear of puppets because of things like Goosebumps and Twilight Zone and movies like Magic, and there were actually movies before that had puppets coming alive. And so there is a fear there, but interestingly, people do not get that with my show. They don't have a fear of my puppets, and I think it's the Muppet thing. When a puppet acts and as if it's a living, breathing creation, or a human, or a frog, or a turtle, or whatever it is, if it really does feel like it's alive, then people will be able to buy into that illusion. Now, if the puppet looks like a puppet and acts like a puppet and is very stiff and does not move naturally, that's going to freak people out. And I think that's going to feed right into the fears. So the better puppeteer you are, the less chance you're going to have of somebody actually freaking out with your puppet. And I've run into this occasionally. It's not common, but it does happen. And I've heard many times people say, "Oh, well, I have a fear of puppets, but I loved your show." So I don't, and it's really just because the illusion is so complete. Once you come to my show, and like you're watching the Muppets or something, within seconds, you believe the puppets that it's not just me up there. It's real characters that I'm sitting here having a conversation with another person. So when you see my show, it doesn't feel like a one-man show. It feels like you just saw 25 different people.
It's a character versus a caricature.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I'll do that a little bit too. I think a lot of what adds to that, like you're saying, is like the writing that goes into it and your performance of it too. I feel like a lot of, even in movies like that, a lot of times, so like the doll comes to life in the movie, but the ventriloquist itself is kind of pictured as more of a gag artist or something too. And then to see your show, there's a lot more artistry that goes into it as far as the writing and the developing of the show, which brings those characters all out even more as well.
Right, and when you see a bad ventriloquist, a ventriloquist that doesn't know their craft very well, or and there are, listen, I'm not saying that there are places for bad ventriloquists. I mean, a lot of them will use it at children's church and everything, and that's fine, it's great. But they'll never reach a level of someone who is a cruise ship entertainer or a Vegas entertainer or someone who performs at performing arts centers or arenas. And the reason is that they don't. It doesn't feel like they're really having a conversation, and that's huge. Yeah. Whether you're a regular puppeteer like you guys are, or whether you're a ventriloquist, you have to believe that these puppets are really having conversations with one another, or if you're a ventriloquist, that you have a relationship with that puppet. And I don't believe that my puppets are real, but when I'm on stage, I certainly make it look like I believe they're real. And if I can't convince the audience that I believe they're real, the audience will never buy into that illusion either.
Yeah, it kind of also reminds me of like being a magician too. It's like you can have the best technical skills in the world, but until you have the performance, and same as a ventriloquist. Even if you have the moving of the lips is the least important part when it comes to probably having a full show together. At that point, like if they're distracted by that, like what are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are ventriloquists like Edgar Bergen whose lips moved horribly, but his puppets became so alive that nobody cared, and people forgave him for that because they were so in love with his characters. And I found it to be such a distraction that I always work to make sure that my lips move. You know, I'm just like everybody else. There are times when nothing I do will keep. If I'm tired, if I'm overworked, if things, then there's nothing I can do. My lips are going to move no matter what. But I do my best to make sure that I have as limited lip movement as I possibly can, just so that I don't have that distraction, like you said.
Sure. Yeah. So you mentioned getting started when you were around 10 years old and such. I'm curious, as someone who was also, kind of finding himself as a puppeteer around that age, somehow puberty happening allowed me to find all sorts of character voices and such. What was that change for you? I know it's kind of a bizarre question, but were you able to find new character voices that was kind of exciting as your voice register changed?
It never occurred to me. It's odd because I just don't remember that ever being an issue. Obviously, I heard, I don't have it anymore, but when I was younger, I had an audio tape, and unfortunately it broke and got lost in one of my moves. I moved a lot growing up, but I listened to it a few years ago, and it was just a squeak. Both of my voices sounded squeaky, and they both sounded the same because I had this little tiny voice that, of a 10-year-old. So I guess it became easier to make a distinction in voices. And to me, that's very important that the characters have different voices. A lot of times you'll see a ventriloquist and their voices are interchangeable, or they only have one voice or maybe two voices. I have 25 different characters, and all 25 of them have a distinct separate voice. And that's tough. That's kind of Mel Blanc territory where you're getting into that, but it's important to me. And some people are just not capable of doing something like that, and that's fine too. But it's kind of tough. But it did get a lot easier to have different voices when my voice changed.
That's very cool. So again, a lot of America got to know you because of America's Got Talent and the years after that. What were you doing kind of right before there? Obviously you had the skills necessary. It seemed like kind of a 20 years overnight success type of thing. But what were you doing kind of in the years before?
Oh, I was doing this. There was, my parents had a janitorial business growing up, and I would practice. I would, of course, watch the Muppets every single week when they came on and study the Muppets and Sesame Street. And anytime there was puppeteering going on that was sort of professional type, I would watch it very carefully and try to study and find out what they were doing and how they were doing things. But when I was cleaning these buildings as a kid, I'd be emptying trashes, vacuuming floors, mopping floors, stripping and waxing floors, cleaning out bathrooms and all this stuff. I would listen to the radio and sing along while I was without moving my lips, so that I could learn how to sing without moving my lips. And then I would also write routines. I would come up with character ideas and try to come up with funny ideas for routines, and it really helped pass the time. So it was never, I never had any other goal once I became a ventriloquist to do anything other than that. I did start a band, and I was in a band for about 15 years where I was the lead singer. But even that, I used my ventriloquism and puppeteering. About every 15, 20 minutes, I would pull out a puppet, and I would have the puppet sing a country song or a rock song or whatever, style of music we were doing. We were a country rock band, so we did all styles of music. So I was still using my ventriloquism and puppeteering. And then back in about 1999 or 2000, I think, maybe it was 2002, I said, you know what, I'm going to pursue this dream. I want to be a full-time ventriloquist. And I had seen Ron Lucas's special on the Disney Channel, and I'd seen other ventriloquists. Jay Johnson, I had watched him a lot, and then Dan Horn was another one that I had seen a lot of. And and so these guys really inspired me to kind of branch out on my own and become a full-time ventriloquist, and I've never looked back since. But I was doing it. I was doing, oh my gosh, hundreds and thousands of shows a year. I was probably working 340 to 345 days a year before America's Got Talent. So I was going all over, playing elementary schools and fairs and corporate parties and any kind of party that somebody would book me for. So I was doing quite well. I was just working my butt off, and I never had stopped working. Even America's Got Talent, I'm working harder now than I ever did.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, and that was something that I wanted to ask you. You mentioned at the top of the interview that you add a new character every year. How do you even have time to create that? Like, where in your schedule are you able to sit down and think about that, or is it when you're on a plane and you're just kind of coming up with an idea? What's that creative process like?
Well, I never stop working because I love what I do. You know, I'm very passionate about it. So whether I'm watching a movie or playing a video game or flying or driving or vacationing, it doesn't matter. It's always there somewhere. And I'll hear something or someone will say something and it'll spark an idea. I'll hear a song on the radio. I'm creating a lot of puppets of actual real people, you know, like David Bowie and Elton John and people like Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney and Bing Crosby and all these. And I'm doing these characters. So I'll hear a song and I'll think, oh my gosh, you know, I love this person. And so I'll end up creating a puppet of that puppet version. So it's kind of like my new show is called An Evening with the Stars. And, you know, I consider Winston the impersonating turtle, who, by the way, wants to say hello.
Oh, wonderful.
Hey, hi, Winston.
Hello, how you doing?
Yeah, we're having an interview.
I've been listening.
He's been listening. Yeah. So, and
I'm a star too.
yes, Winston definitely is a star. But you know, these celebrities that you might see, and so it's An Evening with the Stars, and you're going to see I think it's close to 75 different impressions that I do of singers in the show. Or
No, you don't do it. The puppets do.
exactly, I don't do it. The puppets do. Right. So, but it's a lot of fun, and it moves very, very quickly in an hour and a half. It's amazing how much you can pack into an hour and a half.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So do you actually, I imagine, do you use Winston to kind of test the waters with a new character? Like, let's say if you're going to bring on a new impersonation of somebody, I imagine you might practice a lot doing it with Winston since he's impersonating Turtle. And then maybe if it does well, develop it into a puppet to add to the show.
Well, I am a turtle. I do love water.
No, that's not what he means. No. He means testing the water. I'll explain. No, actually, I don't. Winston's kind of my catch-all character. And if there's somebody that I just don't have a character, he can do the impression of that. But I've really never run into an issue where I try something out and it doesn't work. And that's just 43 years of working and practicing and playing before millions upon millions. You know, we've had over 2 million people come and see the show at the Mirage alone. Wow. That's not even including all of the shows that we're doing on the road and the millions of people I performed with before. So I've really developed an instinct of what people are going to like and what they're not going to like. And so, and I also only choose songs that I feel are going to be legendary, songs we're going to be still singing in 20, 30, 40 years. So songs that have stood the test of time. And if it's a new songs that we're still going to like in many, many years, like we do the Beatles.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. Wait, one more thing I want to say too is, so you kind of started off your performing career as a magician. Is that true when you were young?
Yes. Well, I was just an all-around entertainer. I dabbled in hypnosis show, wow. 7 or 8. You know, I found a book on how to be a hypnotist. Never did work for me, but I did do hypnosis for a while at the fairs. I would offer a hypnosis. I learned how to do stage hypnosis, and I would offer to fairs, and it worked great because, you know, I'd do a hypnosis show 1 hour, and then I do a ventriloquism show the second hour, and then I do another hypnosis show. So the fairs loved the fact that they were getting, you know, 2 for 1.
Oh, exactly.
But and then I started doing magic when I was about 8. And then when I found my book on ventriloquism, that's really where my passion lied. I don't know what it was about it that just attracted me. I think I just enjoyed I just enjoyed the idea of creating a new character.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, it's one thing. It's funny to think about it because I actually started off as a magician as well. Did magic shows for like 10 years, and then I had a very small stint in ventriloquism, which didn't go anywhere. And then I found puppetry, which is kind of my main thing that I do now. And one thing I just thought about in meeting all these different types of performers, you know, you look at you know, from the scale of puppeteer to magician. I see ventriloquist. You know, it's definitely in the middle. But actually, I kind of feel like it leans more toward magician in the performance style and in a lot of ways. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Nature.
Yeah, the live illusion nature, yeah.
In a sense, it is like magic because we're creating an illusion. We're creating the illusion that, you know, this little guy here is alive.
Illusion?
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to talk.
I think we do too, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Anyway, but we create the illusion that these characters that are on our hands and that we create the illusion that they're living, breathing creatures that are, in my case, singing and doing jokes, and so it's very similar to a magic show. And the better you are at creating that illusion, the better your show is going to be, and the more acceptance you're going to find. And I love the fact that ventriloquism and magic and more variety acts are now coming more into the mainstream through shows like America's Got Talent and Britain's Got Talent and all this. You know, people are realizing that these are not just tools that are used for children's entertainment. For the longest time, I would tell people I'm a ventriloquist, and they would say, "Oh, you should play my kid's birthday party," and I'd be like, "Actually, I perform for all ages, you know, and my show is clean."
That's right, and that's because I told him that.
Yeah, he made it clean.
I did. I won't let him do dirty stuff.
Yeah, and that's not that I'm against dirty stuff. I'm fine with, you know, going to a comedian that's dirty. It's just I've got a commitment in myself to make sure that my show stays clean. And in fact, I've gotten the #1 family-friendly show voted for, I think, the last 6 years in a row on the Strip. So #1 family show in Vegas. So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah,
That is
absolutely. So it's interesting, and maybe this is something that Winston has to cover his ears for. But we understand that you worked with Puppet Heap on developing a design for him. We actually were good friends with Jean Marie Keevens, who I think you may have worked with.
I did, yes.
Yeah, and she was on the show a couple months ago. But anyhow, a nitty gritty question about just the puppet. The puppet tool element of it. Do you have multiple? Do you have to have multiple versions of the same characters, either for costume changes or anything like that?
Yeah, for some of them I do. For most of my main characters, I absolutely have doubles. Like in the Christmas show, Winston wears he comes back as Santa Claus later, so he has this cute little Santa outfit and a hat and everything. And he comes out. So I do have a double for him. I think I have 3 of him because one of them is a press when I need to go out for press. Some of the other ones I don't have doubles of. The ones that are exclusively like ones that I use only at the Mirage don't have doubles. But I try to have doubles of everyone because it's nice to have a backup. And then I do a lot of touring, and so quite often I have to ship the puppets ahead of time to the venue so that they're ready and I don't have to travel with them. It just makes it a lot easier for us to set up and get the show ready. So yeah, on that. And I love Puppet Heap. They do phenomenal work. They did. And I'm going to just let you guys in on kind of a little secret that because it's kind of happening soon. And he's actually in the show now is Dean Martin. Puppet Heap made my Dean Martin character, and he is phenomenal. We're just blown away by how amazing he looks.
Wow.
And what a great character. They're just amazing. They made my Elton John puppet, my Dean Martin, and of course they made Winston and Dougie, and they've made so many. Rex, they actually did. Rex is a hard figure that was is a crash test dummy, and I believe that was the only hard figure they've ever done. And they did a spectacular job on Rex.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know you've done a lot of work with Steve Axtell as well. We were actually going to have him on in December. We had to reschedule, so it's coming soon. But I know he's done a lot of great work for you as well.
Yes, he has. Yes, Steve's an incredible artist.
Yeah,
just comes up with a lot of innovative stuff. And I've worked with Keith Lovick, who's an amazing makes some of my hard figures. And Chance Wolf, I've just recently discovered in the last couple of years, and he's made 3 of my different characters. And boy, has this guy knocked it out of the park. These are. I like to work with everything. I know a lot of people are going toward the soft sculpture because it's easier, but there's just nothing like a good hard figure that has the eyebrows that raise and the closing eyes and the winking and the eyes that cut back and forth. You can do a lot with a hard figure that you cannot do with a soft sculpture. So I highly recommend you puppeteers out there, if you're a ventriloquist, that you dabble in with the hard figures and try to find some and learn how to do them properly, because you'll get a lot more depth in your show when you're able to use hard figures and soft figures.
Absolutely. Yeah. To be able to enhance that performance, we were just watching some footage of you with your Michael Jackson puppet, and he kept kind of looking from side to side. And I noticed that every time before his head turned, his eyes would go just a little bit to lead that animation. And it was such a subtle thing, but you wouldn't be able to get that with just a soft figure.
No, you don't. And that's all me, by the way. That's not.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, there are some puppets that have the automatic eye movement, but that's thousands and thousands of hours. A lot of people don't have the dedication to put the kind of time I've put into making the puppet feel real. But I spent thousands of hours before I ever got on stage with them, learning how to. I just when I turn the head, I automatically flip the eyes over, and then when he turns anytime the puppet looks one way. And here's how I figured this out. I would look at myself in the mirror, and I would notice that if I ever turned my head, my eyes would automatically cut. It's natural for a human. So if you turn your head any direction, you cannot keep your eyes straight. So I thought, well, geez, if my puppet turns his head, his eyes are gonna cut. So it's natural for me now. I don't even think about it. But if the puppet looks to the right, his eyes cut right, and if the puppet looks to the left, his eyes cut left. And it's just as natural for the puppet as it is for a human being. So, and those are the little things, though, that people need to learn that will make that puppet come alive and make people feel that they're talking to a real character as opposed to a wooden puppet or a wooden dummy.
And it's, I'm sure, as you've mentioned, just coming from hours of studying that technique and then being able to just forget it and just, inhabit that character. You do it so well.
Another thing I like too is I like that you took some of your puppets from like America's Got Talent and you reimagined them, like the Emma Taylor. Like I love the way that looked. Who did that one? Was that
was Puppet Heat? Yeah, they did Winston and Emma. And what happened was, on America's Got Talent, I mean, geez, I was just working. I wasn't making a ton of money, and I was paying the bills, but I was doing what I love for a living, but I wasn't ever going to get rich doing it. And I bought 2 puppets I had a toy store, the little turtle puppet and the little girl puppet. And then once I hit the Mirage and I had my own show, and I realized, I'm going to have some proprietary puppets that are not that, because I want to sell these things and people are going to want to own little Winstons, little Emmas. And so I called Puppet Heat. Or actually, they contacted me and said, we'd love to make puppets for you. And they were my first 2 that I did, which was Winston and Emma. And they're just spectacular. Everything they do is so amazing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Look, what I love so much about it too is they really captured the essence of the old ones, but they're just, they're so polished. They're so nice. Yeah. They do.
Yeah.
Brought up. Wow.
In terms of working with puppet builders, aside from saying we want a caricature of Michael Jackson or Elton John or whatever, what kind of back and forth discussion do you go through with someone? Because I know Adam gets, as a puppet builder, all the time people asking him for commissions and such. And what's that back and forth? What are things that you make sure to emphasize when you're talking to a builder?
Well, I mean, what you do is you just describe in as much detail the type of character that you want, and it doesn't hurt to be able to describe what you want. For example, when I was talking to Puppet Heap about Rex, I said I want a crash test dummy, but I want you to make it so that his eyebrows are in a constant state of fear and surprise because his whole life is lived in fear. But yet, and I said, I think it would be very funny if at times he can make his eyes look angry, if he gets mad about something. So really, he's always looking like, oh, I'm so scared of everything, and so and they did a perfect job. So when you're creating a puppet, you just want to explain a little bit like what the character is going to be like and what the character is going to be, what that character is going to be doing. And then you just got to go back and forth. I am a terrible artist, but I have friends who are artists, and I also work with some Disney artists who work for Disney and do that. And I'll have them draw up some sketches. People like Chance Wolf and Keith Lubbock, they do. I don't know if Keith does, but I know Chance does his own drawings. And he will draw up some things, and I'll say, well, I don't know, the chin's too big, or I don't like eyes, and I don't like the ears. We have it perfect. I want, I'm very involved in the creation. It's just I can't create them myself. I have no talent in that at all.
You have plenty of talent elsewhere.
Yeah, actually, I want to go back on that for one more second, because I was thinking a lot about ventriloquism. Like, in a lot of ways, it has to be one of the most difficult art forms, not even from the technical aspect of not moving your lips. I was thinking about it so often. Even as puppeteers, you look at something like Avenue Q, the puppeteers are on stage and they're emoting with the puppet. Whereas in ventriloquism, you often kind of have to do the opposite emotion of whatever the character is doing.
I have to react to what the puppet is saying. I can't emote what the puppet is saying. I have to act like I'm hearing the puppet, what the puppet's saying for the first time. That's very difficult. There's not a lot of ventriloquists that have mastered that technique. I think probably the best in the world at that is Ron Lucas. He's so good at that. And actually, it was my studying him where I watched his special, his Disney special. I taped it, back in the late '80s, and I watched it ad nauseum. I probably watched that thing 10 times a day for about 5 straight years, and I'm not exaggerating. I really did, studying every part of it and learning how to. And then I would work with my own characters on how to, when the puppet is saying something, not having a facial expression of what the puppet is saying, but as if I'm hearing it and reacting. It's a very difficult thing to do, but it's worth it. It's worth the practice.
Yeah, because man, wanting to make an angry face, having the puppet yelling at you, but having to make a face of fear. Again, the opposite emotions. It's like, oh my gosh, so much going through your head at one time. And oh jeez,
never thought of that.
My God.
Now you mentioned having toy versions of some of the characters that you've created for sale and at your shows and such, and that all goes to the Terry Fator Foundation. Can you talk about creating that, because we were really
Yes.
intrigued by your work with that foundation?
Yeah, I just feel like that giving back is a huge part of being alive, and we all give back in different ways. And God has blessed me financially with this amazing contract at the Mirage, and there's only so much one man needs money wise, and so I decided that all the profits I make from all sales of any merchandise, whether it's at the Mirage or on my website, terryfator.com, or Facebook, it should go to the Terry Fator Foundation. I started a foundation, and it works primarily with military and first responders, but we also have branched out to help kids with cancer, to help blind children, to help Shriners Hospital. We're just doing a lot to help the community and to help a lot of people that need help. And that's I'm very proud of that. That not just for myself, I'm very proud of the fact that my fans who helped put me here, they voted for me. We worked together to help people, because when they purchase merchandise, and I have a lot of people that will come in and just buy tons of stuff, hundreds of dollars worth of stuff for their friends and relatives, mainly because they know that money is going to go to help people. So it's really cool that we get to work together. We worked together to get me at the Mirage by them voting for me on America's Got Talent, and now we work together for charity to help a lot of really deserving people.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, we just realized how many different things that you donated to. And I know even we've been to the Eugene O'Neill Puppetry Conference for many times. I know for a long time you had a scholarship there that many of our friends had benefited from and able to go. So yeah, we thank you very much for that, and then all the other contributions you've made to the community.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we begin to wrap up, we really so appreciate your time with us. We know you're about to go to a show, but the name of the show is Puppeteers, and we always ask as we wrap up with a performer if there was ever a time that something didn't go right while you were on performing or on tour or anything like that, that you just wanted to pull your hair out at the time, but looking back in hindsight, you could kind of laugh about it, a good puppeteer moment.
Yeah, something that gave you puppet tears.
Absolutely. And this is something to learn for any performer out there. Whatever you do, that when something goes wrong, don't panic, don't get all upset about it, don't freeze. Understand that you are there to entertain the audience that is watching you. So a mistake can turn into a wonderful moment for the audience. They love those moments that they know are just theirs. And so many times, and if you can turn it into a funny moment, people think that it's actually a part of the show. And there are times when a terrible mistake has been made that I actually make a part of the show because it turned out funny. And one of the times was I was doing and you can see this on my DVD. I was on my first DVD. I think it's Live in Concert or not, Live in Las Vegas is what it's called. And I was doing a Walter T. Airedale, and I was playing as Michael Jackson, and I accidentally switched up the voices. And had I not been a seasoned Walter, my country character started talking like Michael Jackson. And it turned into the funniest thing. And instead of panicking and getting all, oh my gosh, I made a mistake, I just rolled with it. And I reacted as if Walter, and I think Walter said something like, what just happened? What the hell just happened? And I said, oh, it's okay. I'm sorry, I just I thought I had a stroke. And the audience went, they fell over, they just fell over. So the thing to remember is I've had the springs snap and the thing just hang open, the mouth just hang open in the middle of a show. And what I do is when I look and realize they're not doing it, I just begin to talk. I just begin to have them go until I do it. And then I just, move the mouth manually. And we have a conversation about that. But the thing is just bring the audience into it. Don't panic and go, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Just let the audience be part of the mistake and laugh about it and have fun with it. And you'll never have a bad show. You'll never have a puppeteer moment.
That's why they come to see live shows.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's otherwise they would just watch the DVD and stay home. That's the point of it. Seeing people thinking on their feet.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's right. That is so cool.
Very cool.
So what's the best way for people to follow you and see what things that are coming up and whatnot?
Well, you can go to terryfator.com. I'm also on Twitter. I'm also, Terry Fator. I think it's at Terry Fator. I don't do the Twitter. I have a team that does it. So I will never have one of those Roseanne Barr moments where I tweet something on Indian because my team, I don't do it. I don't even have a Twitter account on my phone.
So you've been hacked, yeah.
That will never happen with any of my puppets either. But also
Unless there's a Roseanne puppet.
That's right.
Facebook.com/Terry Fator also. So yeah, you can follow me through all my socials. And of course, mirage.com if you want tickets, or terryfator.com. I travel. If you go to terryfator.com and facebook.com/Terry Fator, you can get my schedule. I travel all over the country. I've played in Buffalo several times.
Oh, yeah.
I play all over the country. So you can check my schedule out. I may be coming to a place near you.
Yeah, actually, I know. I think just last year you were at the Seneca Niagara Casino, which is right by us. And some of my family went to see the show, and they were just raving about it. Saying it was most amazing thing they've ever seen in that theater, and they can't wait till you come back to it.
And every year I change the show some, so they'll be able to see a lot of new stuff when I come back next.
Do you always use you don't always use all your puppets, right? Because you say you get a new one each year, but you rotate them, right?
I do rotate them, and the road show is different than the than my Mirage show. So you'll see something totally different, and I don't have that many puppets. There's no way I could travel with that many puppets.
Of course.
But I'm thinking this may be a good way to do it because it keeps the show moving so quickly, and kids have such a short attention span these days that I kind of see them kind of starting to lose it if a puppet routine goes on for more than about 5 minutes. So now every routine is about 2 minutes long, no more than 2.5 minutes. And it just goes bam, bam, bam. It's moving. It's so fast and so fun. And there's a lot of jokes and a lot of singing and a lot of impressions. And I kind of like the format. It makes it fun for me. It makes it fun for the audience too.
That's awesome.
Wonderful.
All right.
Well, Terry Fator, thank you so much for joining us on Puppeteers. It was a pleasure to talk with you, and hopefully, if you're in Buffalo sometime, we'll be able to maybe meet up and come see the show. So
yeah,
I love that. Yeah,
a little behind the scenes look. That'd be great.
That would be wonderful.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time.
Sure thing.
Thanks so much, Terry. Bye.
Many thanks to this week's newest Patreon patrons: Michael Bear, Matthew Krieger, Chad Showit, and Kevin Spillman. If you enjoy the show, visit patreon.com/puppeteerspod to pledge your support today so we can keep creating in-depth interviews with the world's most passionate puppeteers. Thanks for watching and listening each week. Oh, did you want to do the thing where we're not moving our lips?
Okay, we'll see what I do with it.
Okay.
Imagine saying it in your head. So like, welcome back to Puppeteers. Just kind of move your head around.
Okay.
No, not at the same time.
Sorry,
when
sorry.
I do it when I talk, you do it when you talk. Okay. Welcome back to Puppeteers. We're your hosts, Adam Krutinger
and Cameron Garrity.
And today is a very special episode. I'm not going to use this.